Imagine you're at a party celebrating a big promotion with your spouse.
Yeah.
Life seems perfect, and then bam, it's all ripped away.
Oh, wow.
That's the tragic beginning of the story we're diving into today. The story of Tom and Sandy Bird.
Right.
On the surface, they had it all. A loving family, a thriving congregation in Emporia, Kansas, and dreams of a bright future. But we're going to learn appearances can be deceiving.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This deep dive takes us into a world of hidden affairs, shocking betrayals, and ultimately murder as we untangle the complex web surrounding the deaths of Sandy Bird and Martin Anderson.
It's, what's so interesting to me about this case is how it makes you think about trust, and the masks people wear.
Yeah.
We think we know the people closest to us, but this story shows just how wrong we can be.
It's true.
Yeah.
It reminds us that even in the happiest places, darkness can be lurking beneath the surface.
Absolutely.
So let's unpack this twisted tale. We've got court testimonies, firsthand accounts from investigators, and even a recorded conversation that reveals a really sinister conspiracy.
Oh, wow.
At first glance, Tom and Sandy Bird seem like the perfect couple.
Right.
Tom, he was a charismatic pastor who was quickly building his congregation and earning praise from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And Sandy, she was amazing, juggling motherhood, teaching, and even working on a graduate degree.
She was busy.
Oh, yeah, incredibly so.
But if you look closely, you can see the cracks starting to show. Tom would often complain about Sandy's busy schedule. He resented all the time she spent on things outside the home.
I see.
And Sandy, even though she was successful, she confided in her friends that she was worried about losing Tom's love and that she felt isolated.
So sad.
Yeah, this dynamic raises a question. How do seemingly strong relationships fall apart under the weight of unspoken resentments and unmet needs? What happens when those cracks become too big to ignore?
And this is where the story gets really unsettling. Tom was really into sports, and he got deeply involved in the local scene. And through this world, he met Martin and Lorna Anderson, another seemingly perfect couple. But this chance meeting would set off a chain of events with devastating consequences.
Right, and it's Lorna who throws the first wrench into this perfect picture. Her question to a friend, "Would you know anyone who could kill my husband?" is really chilling.
Oh, yeah?
It sends shock waves through their social circle and hints at the problems hidden behind closed doors. Now, there's no proof of abuse in the Anderson marriage.
Okay.
But Lorna's claims that Martin mistreated her introduce the possibility of a fatal attraction scenario.
So you're saying that the excitement of a forbidden romance, combined with the desire to escape or have control, could have driven Lorna to extremes.
Exactly. And then the story takes a tragic turn with Sandy's death.
Right.
Initially, it was ruled an accident.
But Officer Rule, the first responder on the scene, he felt that something wasn't right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there were just too many inconsistencies. No skid marks, blood on the bridge, and trees. Sandy's seatbelt was unbuckled, and the driver's seat was adjusted for someone much taller.
It just didn't add up.
Not at all.
And this is a classic example of how bias can affect even experienced professionals, the sheriff. He was blinded by the image of this respected pastor and his perfect life.
Right.
He dismissed Officer Rule's concerns. He just couldn't believe that a preacher's wife could be murdered.
It's a good reminder that preconceived notions can really cloud judgment and prevent a thorough investigation.
Absolutely. Thankfully, Officer Rule's intuition and attention to detail wouldn't let him ignore the red flags.
And as he dug deeper, interviewing Sandy's friends and family, a totally different picture emerged.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they described her as careful, intelligent, always wore her seatbelt, someone who would never drive without it.
I see.
This completely contradicted the accident theory and fueled Rule's suspicions that something far more sinister had happened.
It's often these small inconsistencies, these little details that don't quite fit, that lead investigators to the truth.
Exactly. The missing skid marks the blood splatter, the unbuckled seatbelt.
Right.
They weren't just oversights. They were clues waiting to be pieced together. Meanwhile, as the investigation into Sandy's death was stalling, Tom and Lorna, seemingly unaffected by the tragedy, began to make their next move.
What's so chilling is the level of planning and cold calculation involved, They set their sights on Sandy's life insurance money.
Wow.
They saw it as the way to get rid of the last obstacle to their happiness, Martin.
So their plan was to hire a hitman to kill Martin and make it look like an accident.
Yeah, it's really disturbing how detached they were from the seriousness of their actions. To them, getting rid of obstacles, even human lives, was justified if it meant they could be happy.
Wow.
And to carry out this plan, they turned to someone Lorna knew from her past, Daryl Carter, her former lover.
It's such a messy web of relationships, and it's made even worse by how Tom tried to justify what he was doing.
Right.
He hid his involvement in this murder plot by pretending to help Lorna escape an abusive marriage, all while calling himself a man of God.
The hypocrisy is unbelievable.
It really is.
Tom's actions are a perfect example of manipulation and compartmentalization. He twists his religious beliefs to rationalize his terrible behavior.
Right.
It's a chilling example of how even the strongest beliefs can be distorted to serve selfish desires, and how outward piety can hide a truly dark heart.
It's scary to think about.
It really is. And then tragedy struck again this time. It was Martin Anderson. He was found shot to death in front of his children
Oh, my goodness.
while he was supposedly helping Lorna look for lost keys.
Oh, wow.
The community was in shock, and Tom, always the performer, he gave this really detailed account of what happened to the press,
Okay.
which just made people even more suspicious about Martin's death.
It's like he was almost too eager to share his version of events.
Right, exactly.
It felt calculated, almost like he was trying to steer the narrative and avoid any suspicion about his relationship with Lorna.
Yeah, you're right to notice that Tom's behavior was textbook manipulation. He was using his position as a pastor, a trusted figure, to influence public opinion and make himself look like a grieving friend instead of a possible suspect.
Wow.
But his explanations and carefully crafted performance only made the inconsistencies in his story more obvious,
Right.
and it fueled the growing suspicion about his involvement in both deaths.
Thankfully, investigators weren't fooled by Tom's act. They started connecting the dots, noticing the link between Tom and Lorna, both recently widowed under suspicious circumstances. And a tip from a Kansas Bureau of Investigation agent about their connection was crucial.
Oh, that's interesting.
It shows how important collaboration between agencies is in solving these complicated cases.
Yeah, for sure. The KBI tip opened up a whole new line of investigation.
Right.
And led authorities to uncover financial transactions that implicated Tom and Lorna even further.
What did they find?
Well, they discovered that Tom had cashed a $5,000 check from Sandy's life insurance right before Martin's death,
Okay.
and that Lorna had taken out a big life insurance policy on Martin just weeks before he died.
Those financial clues were practically screaming Tom and Lorna's names.
Right. They established a clear motive opportunity and a direct link between the suspects and the victims.
It shows that even the most carefully planned schemes can leave a trace.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And in this case, the trail led investigators to Danny Carter, Lorna's brother-in-law.
Okay.
His arrest and confession revealed his part in the plan to kill Martin,
Wow.
confirming that Tom and Laura were both involved in the conspiracy.
So they had their guy.
Well, sort of. Danny insisted that the person who actually killed Martin wasn't anyone he knew.
Oh, so that throws a wrench in things.
It adds another layer of complexity to the case. Was Martin's death a hit gone wrong? Or was there someone else involved, someone working behind the scenes?
And just when you think the story couldn't get any wilder, a key piece of evidence appears.
Really, what was it?
Daryl Carter, afraid for his own safety, revealed that Tom had been desperately trying to contact him from jail.
Wow.
This led to a major breakthrough, a recorded conversation where Tom admits to the plan to kill both Sandy and Martin.
That's huge.
It was the proof investigators needed. It completely destroyed Tom's image of innocence and exposed him as the mastermind behind these horrific crimes.
His carefully constructed facade was shattered, revealing the truth about his lies and the extent of his evil.
But even though the recording was damning, investigators knew they needed more to build a solid case against Tom, especially for Sandy's murder.
Right.
They had motive and opportunity, but they needed undeniable proof that placed Tom at the crime scene.
This is where the careful work of forensic investigators and the power of science come in.
Exactly. Every detail, no matter how small, could be the key to finding the truth. And in Sandy's case, the truth was buried with her.
That's a chilling thought.
Investigators found problems with Tom's alibi for the night Sandy died. The babysitter's description of his clothes didn't match what Tom said.
Oh, so more inconsistencies.
Yeah, casting even more doubt on his story, these discrepancies, along with Officer Rule's initial suspicions, led authorities to exhume Sandy's body for a second autopsy.
Okay, and what did they find?
What Dr. Eckerts, a well-known forensic pathologist, found was horrifying.
Oh, no.
Dr. Eckert's findings changed everything he discovered: defensive wounds on Sandy's arms.
So she fought back.
Yeah, indicating a struggle and blunt force trauma that didn't fit with a car accident. These injuries painted a clear picture of a brutal attack,
Wow.
totally contradicting Tom's story of an accident. It's a powerful example of how science can uncover the truth even when things seem misleading.
Absolutely. And as if the forensic evidence wasn't enough, Lorna's confession delivered the final blow.
Wow, what did she say?
She described in chilling detail how Tom allegedly beat Sandy with a tire iron, kicked her as she clung to the bridge railing, and then staged the scene to make it look like an accident.
It's hard to believe.
It is Lorna's confession shocking, as it was matched the forensic evidence. It backed up Dr. Eckert's findings and strengthened the prosecution's case against Tom.
It was a devastating revelation that exposed the true extent of Tom's cruelty and removed any last doubts about his role in Sandy's murder.
And with all the pieces of the puzzle finally in place, Tom was indicted for Sandy's murder, setting the stage for a trial that would grip the nation.
Right. The prosecution methodically laid out their case, using the evidence to expose Tom's web of lies and manipulation.
Okay.
They highlighted the contradictions in his accounts, the damning financial trail, and that chilling recorded conversation where he admitted to planning both murders.
Wow, they had a strong case.
They did.
Yeah.
They also brought in witnesses who knew Sandy personally
Right.
to show what kind of person she was and her habits, which completely contradicted the accident narrative. These testimonies helped to humanize Sandy, reminding the jury that she was a real person, a wife, a mother, a friend whose life was tragically taken.
That's important in a case like this, to remember the victim as a person.
Absolutely. And then the Carter brothers, key players in the plot to kill Martin, gave crucial testimony.
What did they say?
They detailed Tom's active role in the plan and his disturbing justification of love for Lorna as his motive.
So their testimony, along with the recorded conversation between Tom and Daryl, completely dismantled Tom's defense.
Exactly. His own words betrayed him, revealing the calculated nature of his actions and the depths of his evil.
And of course, Dr. Eckert, the forensic pathologist who performed the second autopsy, was a pivotal witness.
Right. His testimony was a turning point in the trial. He presented his findings in a clear way, explaining the significance of the defensive wounds on Sandy's arms and the blunt force trauma that contradicted Tom's claims of an accident.
He was able to cut through the emotion of the case and show the jury the brutal reality of Sandy's murder.
It left no room for doubt. This was not an accident. It was a cold-blooded, premeditated murder.
And despite the mountain of evidence against him, Tom's defense team fought hard to discredit the prosecution's case.
Right. They argued that the prosecution relied too much on hearsay and lacked concrete eyewitness accounts of the actual murder.
That's a common defense tactic when there isn't much direct evidence. They tried to create doubt in the minds of the jurors by focusing on the lack of a smoking gun. Okay. That directly placed Tom at the scene of Sandy's murder. They argued that he was a loving husband who spent the night desperately searching for his missing wife.
Right.
That he was a victim of circumstance, not a killer.
But their attempts to portray Tom as an innocent man failed. The jury, after careful consideration, found him guilty.
So justice was served.
Tom Bird, the once respected pastor, was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife, Sandy.
While Tom's conviction brought some sense of justice and closure to Sandy's family and friends, it also revealed the ripple effects of his actions. The community, once a place of faith, was left reeling from the shattered image of their pastor.
And the congregation he had so carefully built was torn apart by betrayal and disbelief.
It's a stark reminder that even in seemingly close-knit communities, darkness can take root, and the impact of violence can last for generations.
Tom's conviction marked the end of one chapter in this twisted story, but it wasn't over yet. Lorna's fate was still uncertain, and the question of who actually shot Martin Anderson continued to haunt investigators. While the trials, brought some closure to the case, the damage that Tom and Lorna caused is immeasurable.
Right. Families were destroyed, a community's trust was shattered, and kids were left to deal with the loss of their parents.
It's hard to imagine what those children went through.
It really is. The impact on the children is just heartbreaking. They were robbed of their innocence, forced into a world of violence and betrayal at such a young age.
Right.
Imagine being there when your father is murdered, or growing up knowing your own father killed your mother.
It's just awful.
The trauma from something like that can have lasting effects.
Absolutely.
Experts say that experiencing violence and loss early in life can impact a child's emotional development, their relationships, their whole well-being.
It's a reminder that the victims in cases like this aren't just the ones who are killed.
Exactly.
It's also the people whose lives are forever changed by the actions of others.
And in this case, the community of Emporia, which was once so peaceful, was deeply affected.
Right.
The congregation that Tom had led was torn apart by his betrayal, their faith shaken to the core.
It's a reminder that even in close communities, darkness can exist, and the impact of violence can last for generations.
That's true.
Lorna, facing overwhelming evidence and the possibility of a long trial, decided to take a plea deal.
Oh, okay.
She admitted to her role in Martin's murder, pleading guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for a 20-year sentence.
So at least there was some accountability.
Yeah, but her confession, while it provided some closure, also raised new questions.
Such as?
Was she really just a victim manipulated by Tom's charm, or was she a more willing participant in these crimes?
Right.
Did she act out of fear and desperation to escape an abusive marriage, like she said, or were her motives more complicated and selfish?
These are important questions.
They really are, and they highlight how hard it is to determine guilt and seek justice in a case as twisted as this one.
Yeah, the legal system aims for fairness and accountability, but it can't always give definitive answers or fully understand the nuances of human behavior.
And in this case, the question of who actually shot Martin Anderson is still unanswered.
Right, Lorna accused Tom, but he was acquitted of those charges.
This unsolved detail adds another layer of mystery to this already complicated and tragic story.
It really does. Was there someone else involved, someone we don't know about? Or was Lorna trying to get a lighter sentence by shifting the blame?
It's a question that continues to bother investigators and anyone trying to understand this case fully.
The truth might never be known, which shows the power of secrets and the limits of our search for justice.
Even after being convicted, Tom insists he's innocent.
Really?
Yeah, he claims his relationship with Lorna was purely platonic and denies any involvement in either murder.
Tom's denial, despite all the evidence, really shows how capable he is of deceiving himself.
It's a scary thought.
It shows that some people can create these elaborate facades even for themselves, refusing to acknowledge the terrible things they've done.
This case, with its web of lies, betrayal, and violence, has taken us deep into the darkest parts of human nature.
It has.
We've seen the allure of forbidden love, the destructive power of ambition, and the devastating consequences of uncontrolled desires.
Right, but maybe the biggest takeaway is this feeling of unease. A reminder that the line between love and obsession, between good and evil, can be incredibly thin.
It's a story that sticks with you, a cautionary tale that makes us question who we trust, to be aware of manipulation, and to value the important bonds of love and loyalty that connect us.
I agree.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the disturbing case of Tom and Sandy Bird, we're left feeling deeply saddened for the victims and their families.
Of course.
And with a lingering question: how well can we ever truly know the people around us? And how can we protect ourselves from the darkness that can sometimes hide in plain sight?
Those are questions worth pondering.
They really are. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.